Alright, I'll be honest with you. Subnautica has been on my wish list for a very, very long time now, and I just never got around to deciding if it was a game that I actually want to buy, or if it was something that I would be absolutely terrified of. Luckily for me though, Subnautica decided to have a free weekend where I could play the game, so I got to enjoy and experience it, and now you get to hear the wonders of this game. The game starts with you getting absolutely screwed as your ship is crashing into the ocean, and the universe decides it's time for you to go and eat some metal as you get whacked in the head and knocked out. When you wake up, everything's on fire, and you gotta put it out to start your underwater adventure. The game mostly revolves around you collecting a bunch of resources and building yourself a base, whilst finding out bits and pieces of the story by exploring, and I do put a strong emphasis on the exploring part, as most of the stuff you'll actually do and need is locked behind that exploration. Subnautica has a completely massive map to explore, with different biomes and life all within them. Within these biomes, there's a bunch of shipwrecks and old bases that contain all the items you would ever need, and you have to go up to them and scan them bit by bit in order to actually unlock the parts that you'll need. Even the main source of underwater movement, the sea glider and other vehicles, require you to go and find their parts scattered around the map. Without it, movement gets really slow, so you're strongly encouraged to go and explore and find these things. Even the waypoints you need to get around and find where you are require you to go search for them. So thanks to all this exploring, you'll end up coming across most of the wildlife in the game, and you get to see pretty much everything the game has to offer, which is something that I find really nice overall. Especially because of the horrors of most games that even just think about featuring water in them. For most modern games, and some older games, anything that has to do with water ends up being extremely poor, or just straight up unfun. Normally, there's about 2 to 3 big things that drag them all down. The first and biggest is that underwater movement is just simply not fun, or intuitive in any way. The second is that instead of the environments looking like a nice, pristine ocean, they look like somebody just dropped kelp everywhere and called it a day, leading to an empty void feeling that makes it really just pathetic to look at. Last but certainly not least is underwater combat and enemy variety. A lot of games that feature underwater stuff have a bunch of enemies and have you do combat underwater, and normally it is absolutely abysmal. Either completely dumbing down the actual combat system to something that will fit underwater, making it significantly worse, or just not really caring about water because it makes up a small fraction of the actual whole gameplay. I've never ran into a game where I thought I love the underwater combat more than anything else in this game. On top of that, normally for underwater combat, the enemy variety is almost non-existent, either being the same enemy multiple times, or just generic fish. I can only defeat generic shark so many times before I completely lose interest in whatever the game is having me try to do. In the case of older games, you sometimes just can't even go in the water. They completely forgo it because, well, they just did. I'll use Guild Wars 2 as an example of underwater stuff, because there's a lot of underwater stuff there. In Guild Wars 2, the movement underwater is super basic. You can go left, right, up, and down. It's nothing special or nothing really intuitive, unless you're using the expansions where they add in a little spice to it. Not much though, very mild. The combat underwater also gets dulled a bunch, compared to fighting on land where you dodge and have all these nice, cool, and fun skills. Underwater, it's kind of just spam keys and, well, do nothing. Because nothing underwater is a challenge. Because all the enemies are boring, weak, and mostly just copy and paste. You really can just churn your brain off and do all the underwater content. And that's what's great about Subnautica. It doesn't have any of these problems. The aforementioned wildlife is one. There is a vast variety of different seagrasses and corals and mushrooms and kelp. There's just so much. One area has this nice red grass, the other is a kelp forest. It is just so nice seeing an underwater environment actually filled with plants and life. It adds so much to the world. Not just that though, but there's also the animals within the world. Each biome has a bunch of different fish and other animals that can interact with, such as this sea cow thing that scared the absolute hell out of me the second I left my life pod for the first time, making the weirdest sound I've ever heard, from this very friendly fish, or this fish that explodes with a beeping sound, or the most absolutely horrifying thing I've ever seen being a sea leviathan. I want to take a moment though to talk about this horrifying creature that is the leviathan, because there's a couple of them. There is this friendly creature who jump scared me because I was swimming too close to the main Aurora ship, and I swear he teleported next to me and I was not expecting a full-on cutscene to being devoured. So that gave me a really good scare, and I love that. But there is also other leviathans, such as this friendly friend. This is a ghost leviathan, and you'll really only see them if you go out of the map border. And what a way to do map borders than having such a horrifying creature lurking in the absolute dark. This thing is horrifying, and I want nothing to do with it. Overall, though, it just brings so much life into this game, and it makes it so much better than any other underwater experience I have ever played. Movement in the game is fixed by having the Sea Glider, allowing you to move much faster and making water not feel sluggish. You also get a bunch of undersea subs and other vehicles that make movement even better and even nicer. That fixes that problem. Lastly is combat, and Subnautica fixes this by simply not really having combat. You only have a knife, and it really only is used for cutting grass and doing other very small tasks. You're not able to really use it for combat besides a few enemies, especially when you're trying to fight a skyscraper-sized demon that's trying to eat you. That whole system really fixes the issue of combat by just kind of avoiding it, and normally that might be a problem. But in this case, it adds a lot of the horrifying fear to Subnautica. Because yeah, you're not really going to be able to actually do anything against the Leviathan, and it makes it way more horrifying than if I had, say, an actual weapon. This makes the game a lot more fun in my opinion. The last really cool thing though about Subnautica that I liked a lot is definitely the building system. I enjoy making bases and having fun with them, and Subnautica happily gives me the opportunity to do both. Of course, it's a little bit harder because you need to find a lot of the stuff to actually build the base. I enjoyed making my tube-shaped house. It had 4 cabinets and some other stuff in it. And I was having fun just setting it up wherever I so desired. The game also encourages you to have multiple bases at different depths as you're able to go deeper and deeper into the core of this planet, which is a really nice touch. I like the idea of getting up, going, and moving my base as I progress through the game. It gives it a lot of charm compared to other survival games I've played. Overall though, while my time with the game was pretty limited, with it being only a couple of days and me having limited time, I had a lot of fun exploring the world and everything that's in it, as well as making my little base and wondering where all my titanium went for it. If you're not deathly afraid of water like some of the people I know, I would honestly recommend this game 100%. It's really good if you want a water-based experience that doesn't absolutely suck, but is in fact great. Excuse me whilst I get my Steam card and buy the game.